So here's the deal. Belly fat isn't some magical different species of fat that laughs at your hard work. It's the same body fat stored in a place we just don't like. The challenge is that it tends to be the last bit to go, which makes it feel stubborn. But if we use science-based nutrition and training, we can chip away at it steadily and predictably without falling for fads or gimmicks. When it comes to losing belly fat, people love to complicate things. They'll talk about secret hormones, magical food combinations, or some training trick that's supposedly going to unlock fat loss from the midsection. And listen, that all sounds cool. It makes you feel like you're in on some hidden knowledge. But the reality is this: if you're not in a caloric deficit, none of it matters. Not keto, not intermittent fasting, not fat-burning supplements, not some exotic spice you saw on TikTok. Nothing. A caloric deficit means you are consistently burning more calories than you're consuming, and that's the only path your body recognizes when it comes to letting go of stored fat. Now, that doesn't mean you need to go on some starvation plan. In fact, that's usually the fastest way to crash and burn. What most people do is they get fired up, they cut their calories way too low, they feel like a hero for about 5 days, and then hunger slaps them in the face. Energy levels tank, their mood is terrible, workouts feel like trash, and eventually they binge and undo the whole thing. That's not the game we're playing. What we're after is sustainability. You want a deficit that's moderate, something like 300 to 600 calories below your maintenance level for most people. That might translate into losing about half a pound to a pound of body weight per week, sometimes a little more at the start. It's not flashy, but it's reliable, and more importantly, it's doable long-term. The reason a moderate approach works so well is that it lines up with how your body adapts. Fat loss isn't just your fat cells shrinking while everything else stays the same. Your body doesn't love giving up energy stores. It would rather keep that reserve around just in case. So when you start cutting calories, your hunger signals ramp up. Your energy output subconsciously goes down, meaning you might fidget less or move a little slower, and your performance in the gym can take a hit. If you crash diet, all those protective mechanisms get triggered hard. But with a moderate deficit, you can kind of sneak under the radar. You're taking away enough energy to lose fat, but not so much that your body panics and pushes back full force. Now, let's be super clear. You can't target belly fat directly with a deficit. Your body doesn't say, oh, we're eating fewer calories, let's pull it specifically from the love handles. It just doesn't work like that. Fat loss happens systemically. Over time, as the overall fat stores shrink, that stubborn belly area will eventually be forced to give up its share. That's why patience is such a big part of the process. You might see your face get leaner, your arms and legs tighten up, maybe even some veins popping you've never seen before, and yet your stomach still feels like it's holding on. That's not a sign your deficit isn't working, it's just the order your body prefers to mobilize fat. Another point that people often miss is accuracy. Everyone thinks they're barely eating anything, but if you actually tracked it, the story would be different. The mind plays tricks here. A little extra scoop of peanut butter, a splash of cream in your coffee, a handful of chips when you walk past the kitchen, those add up. And if you're not accounting for them, your deficit can disappear before you even realize it. That's why, especially in the beginning, tracking your food can be a huge eye-opener. It's not about obsessing over every gram forever, but about teaching yourself what portions really look like and where hidden calories sneak in. Once you've built that awareness, staying in a deficit becomes much easier. One thing I like to emphasize is that food quality still matters within a deficit. Yes, technically, you could lose weight eating only junk food if you stayed in a deficit. But practically, good luck. Processed foods are usually less filling, more calorie-dense, and they spike cravings. Compare that to high-volume, nutrient-dense foods like vegetables, fruits, lean meats, whole grains. These give you more bang for your calorie buck. You feel fuller, your energy levels are steadier, and you're not walking around all day fighting the urge to inhale a bag of cookies. A smart deficit isn't just about less food, it's about better food choices that make less feel like enough. And let's not forget lifestyle factors that reinforce the deficit. Sleep plays a massive role. If you're chronically underslept, your hunger hormones go wild, cravings get stronger, and your ability to regulate appetite tanks. Stress management is another big one. High stress can lead to emotional eating or even just less mindful eating, and suddenly that clean deficit you thought you were running isn't so clean anymore. So yes, calories are king, but the way you structure your life makes hitting those numbers a whole lot easier or harder. At the end of the day, the caloric deficit is the non-negotiable rule. If you're not losing fat, it's not because your body is broken or because your metabolism is damaged. It's because you're not in a consistent deficit. That might sting to hear, but it's liberating too. It means you don't need to keep chasing fads. You don't need a detox tea, a fat-burning pill, or some celebrity diet plan. You just need to create a consistent, sustainable deficit and give it time to work. It's not glamorous, but it works every single time. So instead of asking, what's the trick to losing belly fat? The better question is, am I truly in a consistent caloric deficit? If the answer is yes, then the fat will come off, maybe not as fast as you want, maybe not from the exact spot you want first, but it will come off. That's the power of the fundamentals. And once you commit to that reality, you stop spinning your wheels and start making real progress. When people think about fat loss, protein isn't usually the first thing that comes to mind. They think about cutting carbs, eliminating sugar, or doing hours of cardio. Protein just kind of sits in the background like the quiet kid in the classroom. But here's the truth. If you're trying to lose belly fat and not lose the muscle you worked hard to build, or even if you don't have much muscle yet, but you want to look lean and athletic once the fat comes off, protein is the foundation. Without enough of it, you're basically sabotaging your own progress. Let's start with the big picture. When you're in a caloric deficit, your body is literally looking for ways to make up the energy you're not giving it through food. And sure, some of that comes from fat stores, which is what you want, but your body doesn't care about your aesthetic goals. It's not thinking, hey, let's give this guy the shredded abs he wants. It's thinking, where can I pull fuel from to survive? And unfortunately, muscle tissue is on the menu. If your protein intake is too low, your body will start breaking down muscle tissue to free up amino acids for energy or for other bodily functions. That's the exact opposite of what you want when you're cutting fat. Protein acts like insurance against that muscle loss. It provides your body with enough amino acids to repair and maintain muscle tissue, even while you're in a deficit. This is critical because the whole point of training and dieting is not just to weigh less, but to look better. If you lose 10 pounds, but half of that is muscle, you're just a smaller version of the same shape. But if most of that loss is fat and the muscle is preserved, now you're leaner, stronger looking, and healthier. That's why people who dial in their protein properly end up with that toned look, while people who neglect it just end up looking flat or skinny fat. Another reason protein is so powerful is satiety. In plain English, it keeps you full. When you're dieting, hunger is the number one enemy. It's the thing that makes you snap at your coworkers, dream about pizza, and eventually blow up your deficit on a late-night binge. Protein is by far the most satiating macronutrient. It digests more slowly than carbs, and it has more impact on satiety hormones than fat. If you start building your meals around lean protein sources, chicken breast, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, whey shakes, lean beef, tofu, whatever works for your diet, you'll find that sticking to your calorie target feels way easier. You don't have to white-knuckle your way through the day. That's a huge win. And let's not forget the thermic effect of food. This is one of those underappreciated aspects of protein that really adds up over time. When you eat food, your body has to expend energy to digest and process it. That's called the thermic effect. Protein has the highest thermic effect of all macronutrients. About 20–30% of the calories in protein get burned just through digestion. Compare that to carbs at around 5–10% and fat at 0–3%. So if you eat 100 calories worth of protein, you're really only netting about 70–80 calories because the rest gets burned off during processing. It's like a little metabolic bonus that makes your deficits slightly easier to maintain. Now, how much protein are we talking about? For most people looking to lose fat while preserving muscle, somewhere in the ballpark of 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day is the sweet spot. If you're heavier or leaner, there can be some adjustments, but that's a reliable range. For someone who weighs, say, 80 kilograms, that's 130 to 175 grams of protein per day. At first, that number can sound high if you've never paid attention to protein, but once you spread it across 3 to 5 meals, it's very doable. A couple of servings of lean meat, a shake, some eggs, and maybe Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, and you're there. One mistake people make is thinking protein needs to come only from 1 or 2 sources, like just chicken breast or just whey protein. That gets old fast. The smart move is to diversify. Animal sources like chicken, beef, fish, and dairy are all high-quality proteins because they contain the full range of essential amino acids. Plant sources like beans, lentils, tofu, and tempeh are also great, but you often need to mix and match them to get the full amino acid profile. The point is, variety makes it sustainable. If your diet feels boring, you won't stick to it. Some people also worry that eating too much protein will harm their kidneys. Unless you already have pre-existing kidney disease, that's a myth. Study after study has shown that high-protein diets are perfectly safe for healthy individuals. In fact, they're not just safe, they're beneficial: better body composition, better satiety, better diet adherence. So, what does this look like in practice? Imagine you're structuring a fat loss diet. You set your calories so you're in a moderate deficit. You look at your protein target and make sure that every meal you eat has a solid serving of protein. Breakfast might be scrambled eggs with some turkey sausage. Lunch could be grilled chicken with rice and vegetables. A snack might be Greek yogurt with some berries. Dinner could be salmon with potatoes and a salad. Maybe you finish the day with a protein shake. You've hit your numbers, you're satisfied, and your muscle is protected. That's what it means to make protein the foundation. At the end of the day, the reason protein is so critical is because it makes everything else about fat loss easier and more effective. It preserves muscle, which is the difference between looking lean and looking just small. It keeps hunger manageable, which means you can actually stick to your deficit. It gives you a slight metabolic boost through digestion. And it's safe, flexible, and practical once you build the habit. If fat loss is the house you're trying to build, protein is the concrete foundation. Without it, everything else is shaky. With it, the whole structure stands strong. When most people decide they want to lose belly fat, the first thing they think of is cardio. They picture themselves slogging away on a treadmill, dripping sweat, imagining that each step is somehow melting fat off their midsection. And to be fair, cardio does have a role. It burns calories, it improves cardiovascular health, and it can help tip you into that deficit you need. But here's the thing. If you make cardio the star of your fat loss program and neglect resistance training, you're going to end up disappointed. Because the truth is, cardio alone doesn't give you the look most people are chasing. If you want to lose fat and look lean, muscular, and athletic once the fat comes off, resistance training beats endless cardio every single time. Think of it like this. Your body is not just a storage unit for fat. It's also a structure made of muscle, bone, and connective tissue. When you diet, you're reducing the size of the fat stores. That's great. But if you don't do anything to preserve or build muscle along the way, what's left underneath doesn't have much shape. You can drop 20 pounds from cardio and dieting alone, but when you finally peel that fat off, you might just look smaller and softer, not lean and defined. Resistance training is what tells your body, hey, this muscle tissue is valuable, don't get rid of it. It's like a signal to hold on to the muscle while the fat is being burned. Here's the science behind it. When you lift weights or perform resistance training, you create mechanical tension and microdamage in your muscle fibers. Your body responds by repairing and reinforcing that tissue, making it stronger and over time bigger. But when you're in a calorie deficit, your body is under stress. Without that stimulus from resistance training, the body has no reason to preserve muscle. In fact, it will happily break it down for energy. That's why resistance training during a fat loss phase is so critical. It acts like a safeguard. You're telling your body, no, don't burn this. We need this. And let's not forget the metabolic side. Muscle tissue is more metabolically active than fat tissue. That means the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn just existing. Now, it's not some massive number. People exaggerate this, but over time, having more muscle does make it easier to maintain a lean physique. If you only focus on cardio and lose a bunch of muscle in the process, you've actually lowered your baseline calorie needs, which makes it easier to regain fat later. With resistance training, you preserve or even gain muscle, which keeps your metabolic engine humming. Another key point, the calorie burn from resistance training isn't just what happens during the workout. Yes, cardio might burn more calories minute for minute while you're doing it, but resistance training has an after effect. It elevates your metabolism for hours as your body repairs muscle tissue, replenishes glycogen, and recovers from the stress. This is called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, EPOC. It's not magic, but it's an additional layer of calorie burn that steady-state cardio just doesn't give you in the same way. Now, this doesn't mean cardio is useless. It's a tool. If you want to burn a few extra calories, improve your conditioning, or just enjoy the mental clarity that comes from a good run or bike ride, cardio has value. The problem is when people make it the only tool, they'll spend hours each week grinding on machines, but they don't pick up a single dumbbell. That approach is almost guaranteed to cost them muscle, especially in a calorie deficit. The smart strategy is to put resistance training front and center, and then use cardio as a supplement, not the other way around. So what does that resistance training actually look like in practice? You don't need to train like a professional bodybuilder to get the benefits, but you do need to train hard and consistently. Compound lifts, things like squats, deadlifts, presses, rows, pull-ups, should form the backbone of your program. These movements hit multiple muscle groups at once, give you the most bang for your buck, and create that strong athletic look. Isolation movements like curls or lateral raises also have their place, especially for weak points or areas you want to bring up. The key is progressive overload, gradually pushing your muscles to handle more weight, more reps, or more sets over time. That's what keeps the stimulus strong enough to preserve muscle while you're cutting fat. And here's an important mindset shift. When you're dieting, you might not be hitting personal records in the gym. That's okay. Strength progress will often slow down or even stall when you're in a deficit. The goal isn't to add huge amounts of weight to the bar during fat loss. The goal is to maintain as much performance as possible. If you're lifting close to the same numbers at the end of your cut as you did at the beginning, that's a win. It means your body is holding on to muscle. One more benefit of resistance training, it changes the way fat loss looks and feels. Cardio might slim you down, but lifting makes you look shaped. That toned look people talk about, that's just visible muscle with lower body fat. You can't get it without resistance training. And psychologically, lifting heavy things and seeing yourself get stronger is a massive motivator. Dieting can feel like you're constantly giving something up, but training gives you something back. You feel accomplished, powerful, and in control of your body. That's a huge factor in staying consistent. So yes, cardio has its place. But if your goal is to lose belly fat and actually like what you see in the mirror afterward, resistance training is non-negotiable. It preserves your muscle, supports your metabolism, burns calories during and after the workout, and gives your body shape. Endless cardio, that just makes you smaller and usually hungrier. Pick up the weights, train hard, and let the fat loss reveal the structure underneath. That's the winning formula. One of the hardest truths about fat loss, especially belly fat, is that it doesn't happen fast. And that's exactly why so many people quit before they see real results. We live in a world where quick fixes get all the attention, 30-day shred programs, miracle supplements, lose 10 pounds in a week schemes. They sound exciting because they promise to shortcut the process. But here's the problem. Your body doesn't care about your timeline. It operates on biology, not marketing slogans. And when it comes to stubborn belly fat, biology demands patience and consistency. There's just no way around it. Think about how long it took you to put that fat on. Months, maybe years of eating a little more than you burned, skipping workouts here and there, living life. Now imagine expecting it all to come off in a few weeks. That's just not realistic. Fat loss is a slow burn. Literally, your body only mobilizes and oxidizes fat at a certain rate, and trying to speed that process up too aggressively almost always backfires. You cut calories too hard. You feel miserable. You start missing workouts. Your metabolism adapts downward, and eventually you end up binging or giving up altogether. It's the fitness equivalent of sprinting into a brick wall. Consistency, on the other hand, is what actually gets the job done. Showing up day after day, hitting your calorie targets, getting enough protein, training with resistance, sprinkling in some cardio, sleeping decently well, none of that is glamorous, but it works. It doesn't give you fireworks after a week, but give it 3, 4, 5 months and the results are undeniable. The people who succeed aren't the ones who find some magical trick. They're the ones who stick to the basics long enough for biology to play out. Now let's talk about belly fat specifically, because this is where patience becomes extra important. Belly fat is often the last place your body wants to lose it. You might notice your face looking leaner, your shoulders more defined, veins popping in your arms, even your legs slimming down, and yet your stomach still feels like it's clinging on for dear life. That's normal. That's not a sign that your body is broken or that you need a special supplement to target belly fat. It's simply the way fat distribution works. For a lot of people, the midsection is the body's favorite storage site, and it's the last place it wants to empty. That means you have to keep going long after you feel like you've done enough. And that's where most people throw in the towel.
Consistency also protects you from the trap of yo-yo dieting. That's the pattern where someone gets motivated, slashes calories, drops some quick weight, then burns out and regains it all, often with interest. Each time this happens, you lose a little muscle, gain back more fat, and make the problem worse. The only way to escape that cycle is by committing to a steady, repeatable plan. It might not be as thrilling as dropping 5 pounds in a week, but 6 months of losing a pound a week is 24 pounds gone, and gone for good, because the process was sustainable.
Here's the other big benefit of patience. It gives you time to build habits. If you crash diet, sure, you might drop weight, but you never learn how to eat in a way that actually fits your life. You never practice handling hunger, structuring meals, or balancing social events while staying on track. Patience allows you to rehearse those skills over and over until they become second nature. And that's the real secret, not just losing the fat, but keeping it off. The people who maintain their results years down the road aren't superheroes. They just built habits slowly enough that they stuck. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds boring. And in a way, yes, it's not flashy, but boring is what works. Think of any skill worth having. Playing an instrument, mastering a sport, building a career. None of that happens overnight. Fat loss is no different. It's a skill, and consistency is the practice. Every time you nail a workout you didn't feel like doing, every time you measure your portions instead of eyeballing, every time you choose a high-protein meal over junk food, you're stacking bricks. One brick doesn't make a house, but 1,000 bricks laid patiently and carefully does. Let's also address the mental side. Impatience is usually driven by comparison. You see someone online who claims they lost 20 pounds in a month, or a celebrity who transformed in 8 weeks for a movie role, and you feel like you're failing. What you don't see are the extreme, unsustainable measures behind those results. Private chefs, punishing schedules, maybe even substances. That's not real life. Real life is you balancing work, family, and stress while still finding the discipline to stick to your plan. That's harder, but it's also why your results will actually last. So, how do you keep yourself consistent when progress feels slow? First, focus on process goals, not just outcome goals. Instead of obsessing over the scale every day, set targets you can directly control. I'll hit my protein today. I'll train 3 times this week. I'll get to bed before midnight. If you hit those process goals consistently, the outcomes, fat loss, muscle retention, a leaner physique, will follow. Second, track small wins. Maybe your lifts aren't going up, but they're holding steady while you're losing weight. That's a win. Maybe your clothes fit better or your energy is more stable. Also wins. Progress comes in many forms, not just the mirror or the scale. In the end, patience and consistency aren't just about fat loss. They're about building a mindset that applies to everything worthwhile in life. Quick fixes are attractive because they promise to skip the hard part, but they never last. Consistency feels slower, but it compounds. You look back after 6 months or a year, and suddenly you're in a body you barely recognize, leaner, stronger, healthier. That didn't happen because of some hack. It happened because you showed up day after day, long after the novelty wore off. So if you really want to lose stubborn belly fat, forget the shortcuts. They'll just keep you stuck. Commit to the process, embrace the slow grind, and trust that biology will reward you if you stay the course. Patience isn't just part of the plan, it is the plan.